In this video, we will explore everyone who was executed in the month of February. We will look into their crimes, their last words, and the last meals they requested before facing their fate. Marian Bowman, from the state of South Carolina, was executed on February 16, 2001. At just 20 years old, Bowman got into an argument with 21-year-old Candy Louise Martin over a debt. The argument escalated into a fight, during which he shot her multiple times in a wooded area. After the shooting, he dragged her body, placed it in the trunk of a car, and set it on fire in a remote location. Just hours earlier, he had threatened her, saying, "You'll be dead before nightfall." Bowman's cousin, James Taiwan Gadsden, testified against him, saying he witnessed the crime and claimed that Bowman had planned it. The evidence was conclusive. The murder weapon was recovered from a river and was linked to the crime through ballistic and DNA tests. Bowman was sentenced to death in 2002. Over the years, he maintained his innocence, claiming that evidence had been concealed and that racism played a role in his defense. The day before his execution, Bowman was offered a last meal. He requested fried seafood, wings, chicken strips, onion rings, banana pudding, German chocolate cake, and cranberry pineapple juice. On January 31, 2025, he was executed by lethal injection in South Carolina. As the execution chamber curtain opened, he looked briefly at his attorney, then at the ceiling, before closing his eyes. When asked for his last words, he said, "Death row inmates may be labeled as the worst, but we've all changed since that moment that cost us everything. I know Candy's family suffers, and rightfully so. They're angry. If my death relieves them, I guess it will have served some purpose. I hope they find peace." Stephen L. Nelson from the state of Texas was executed on February 5, 2025. On March 3, 2011, at the age of 24, Nelson entered the North Point Baptist Church in Arlington, Texas, intending to rob it. Only Reverend Clint Dobson, 28, and Secretary Judy Elliott, 69, were present at the time. Already on parole for a previous assault, Nelson brutally attacked both victims. He beat and strangled Dobson with a computer cable and then suffocated him with a plastic bag. Elliott sustained severe injuries, including facial fractures and a brain hemorrhage, but she survived after a long recovery. After the attack, Nelson stole Dobson's laptop, Elliott's credit cards, and her car. He used the stolen cards to buy clothes and jewelry and later sold the laptop for money. Police identified him quickly through fingerprints and bloodstains found on his shoes. He was arrested and convicted of capital murder, a crime punishable by death in Texas. Although another man was initially detained in connection with the crime, charges against him were dropped. Since Texas does not offer last meals to death row inmates, Nelson did not receive one. He was declared dead at 6:50 p.m. at the Huntsville State Penitentiary. Just before the injection, he repeatedly told his wife, Helen Noah Dubois, that he loved her and was grateful. Dubois was watching from the witness room and had been allowed to bring in her white service dog. Nelson said, "It is what it is," and then added, "Enjoy life." Before the injection began, he said, "I'm not afraid. I'm at peace. Let's ride, Warden." As the pentobarbital took effect, he told his wife, "Let me sleep." His final word was love. He gasped twice, trembled for a few seconds, then became still. He was declared dead 24 minutes later. Demetrius Terren Frasier was executed in the state of Alabama. On November 27, 1991, Frasier broke into the apartment of 40-year-old Pauline Starks Brown in Birmingham. After forcibly waking her up, he demanded money and then sexually assaulted her at gunpoint. Despite her pleas for her life, Frasier shot and killed her before stealing her money. Months later, on March 8, 1992, in Detroit, Michigan, Frasier attempted to assault 14-year-old Crystal Kendrick. He held her captive in an abandoned house, and when she tried to escape, he shot her, killing her instantly. Frasier was arrested shortly after in Michigan, where he confessed to both crimes. In 1996, he was convicted of Pauline Brown's murder in Alabama and was sentenced to death. In 2018, Frasier opted to be executed by nitrogen hypoxia, a method Alabama adopted as an alternative to lethal injection. The day before his execution, he requested Taco Bell, including burritos and a Mountain Dew. He was executed on a Thursday night and declared dead at 6:36 p.m., becoming the fourth person in Alabama to be executed using this method. When asked for his final words, Frasier said, "First of all, I want to apologize to the friends and family of Pauline Brown. What happened to her should never have happened. I want to apologize. James Dennis Ford from the state of Florida was executed in 2025. In 1997, Ford invited Greg and Kimberly Mallory on a fishing trip, but instead brutally attacked them. Greg was shot in the head with a .22 rifle and then struck with an axe. Kimberly was hit in the head, sexually assaulted, and murdered. Their 22-month-old daughter was left in their truck for over 18 hours, alone and covered in her mother's blood. Ford was found guilty of murder, sexual assault, and child abuse. The horrific nature of the crime, especially the involvement of a child, made his case one of the most aggravating in the state's recent history. Despite multiple appeals, his death sentence was upheld in 1999. Ford remained on death row at Florida State Prison for over 2 decades. In the years leading up to his execution, Florida's death penalty practices became inconsistent. Only 1 execution took place in 2024, but 6 were carried out in 2023. Governor Ron DeSantis signed Ford's execution order, marking the end of a brief period of inactivity. The day before his death, Ford requested a final meal consisting of steak, macaroni and cheese, fried okra, sweet potatoes, pumpkin pie, and sweet tea. When asked for final words, Ford remained silent. However, the Department of Prisons reported that he wrote a final message on paper which read, "Hugs, prayers, love. God bless you all." Richard Lee Tabler from the state of Texas was executed on February 13, 2025. In November 2004, Tabler murdered nightclub manager Mohammed Ramouni and his friend Zed in Killeen, Texas. Tabler and his accomplice, Timothy Don Payne, lured Ramouni by pretending to sell him sound equipment. Upon arrival, they ambushed him, shooting Zed first, then shooting Ramouni again after dragging him from the car. After the double murder, Tabler stole Ramouni's wallet and other belongings while Payne filmed the entire event on video. Tabler later called the police, not just to confess, but to threaten additional murders. Just 2 days later, on November 28th, Tabler murdered Amanda Benefield and Tiffany Lorraine, 2 teenage girls who worked at the same nightclub. He believed they had snitched on him. He selected their names from a list of employees and targeted them deliberately. Tabler continued to taunt the police, making threatening calls and mocking law enforcement. He was arrested and sentenced to death for the 4 murders. On February 13, 2025, at the age of 46, Tabler was executed by lethal injection at 6:38 p.m., becoming the second person executed in Texas that year. In his final statement, Tabler apologized to the families of his victims, many of whom were present during his execution. He also thanked his own family, legal team, and the prison staff for their support. He said, "Not a day goes by that I don't regret my actions. I had no right to take their loved ones. I ask and pray, hope and pray, that one day you find it in your hearts to forgive me. None of my apologies will bring them back.